Right, welcome along to this meeting today of the Finance and Resources Committee on the Wednesday, 1st of October 2025. Can I first of all apologise for the delay in start, but that's primarily due to the fact that it was quite a lengthy agenda with housing and social wellbeing. I'm also conscious there's 3, indeed 4 members of that committee who are also members of this committee, so we thought it right to give them a little bit of a break over lunchtime, and the same applies with committee services staff. I think we, though, nonetheless, I think have a reasonable chance of concluding by 5, perhaps earlier. Let us see how it goes. I welcome, there's various people I could welcome along today, but I think in particular, even though the congratulations were given at full council recently, I would like to welcome in particular Stephen Crawford and also John Beveridge, who will be his successor as strategic lead in property services. And I think we all know the great task that Stephen has carried out over recent years and how grateful we are to him. And I'm sure he's got to come in on 1 or 2 of the questions. Right, can I ask first of all, Kirsten, as clerk, what apologies we have and substitutions?
Thank you, Convener. We have an apology from Councillor Allen with Councillor Anderson substituting, an apology from Councillor Lane with Councillor Massey substituting. I think we have Deputy Provost Parrott joining us online, and can I just confirm that he's in the meeting?
I'm here.
Thank you. All other members are present in the chambers, Convener.
Thank you very much, and good to hear from you, Andrew. I hope you're feeling a bit better soon. Right, do we have any declarations of interest? Anyone? There being none, we then move on to the minutes of the last meeting of this committee on the 25th of June. Does anyone have any comments, any matters arising that are not effectively on the agenda today? Anyone? Or can we agree the minutes? Have we agreed? Thanks very much. Okay, on the outstanding business statement, from what I can see, all the items have been completed, but does anyone have any comments to make on that? Right, and that I think is now entirely up to date. I dare say there may be 1 or 2 things that will arise from the meeting today, but let's see. Okay, we now move on to the revenue budget, the first update for the current year. And I'm going to call on Scott Walker to introduce the report. And subsequent to Scott, I think I'm going to ask Jackie Pepper of our strategic lead on health and social care to also make a comment, because I think it would be helpful for members of the committee and just the position that applies. And it's quite a major part of the aspect of the paper on the revenue paper. But first of all, Scott, can I ask you to introduce the report? Thanks.
Thank you, Convener, and good afternoon, councillors. This is the first revenue monitoring report for this financial year and is based on the June ledger. As it stands, we're currently projecting a net overspend of £3.469 million on the management budget for 25-26. This is a significant figure and reflects the real pressures we're experiencing, particularly in health and social care, which is a challenge not unique to Perth and Kinross, but seen across Scotland. As part of my introductory remarks, I'll touch on this briefly, but there are colleagues available to provide more detail. I need to stress that these projections are based on just 3 months of financial data and will undoubtedly change, either favourably or unfavourably. As is the case every year, the committee will receive further updates as the year progresses. In section 4 of the report, I provide an update on the 25-26 revenue monitoring position. Firstly, in relation to service revenue budgets, I'm reporting that across all strategic leads, there's a projected underspend of £50,000 or 0.01% of total net service expenditure. In education and learning, whilst the projection is currently on target, there are significant under and overspends on staff slippage across different sectors. These are summarised in the table at paragraph 4.5. At this time, Devolved School Management and Pupil Equity Fund budgets are projected to be on target, but these will be updated following the start of the academic year. Across Children, Families and Justice, there's a projected underspend of £270,000. This is based on the latest information on demand for foster, kinship and adoption support following the introduction of new working practices, which is partially offset by overspends on residential placements. In Economy, Development and Planning, there's a projected overspend of £148,000. This is made up of a shortfall in the bad debt provision and costs relating to the Tay Cities deal and Perth Harbour. Whilst there is a small projected overspend of £25,000 in environment and infrastructure, paragraph 4.21 provides an update on funding from the Extended Producer Responsibility Scheme for packaging. Over the summer, the Council was advised that our funding allocation from this source would be reduced by £1.180 million. We can absorb this reduction in the current year, but there may be implications for future years. In property, there is a net projected overspend of £222,000. Within this projection, there are overspends that include staff slippage, loan charges and unitary charge costs. These are offset by significant projected savings on our energy budgets. In addition, I'm reporting a shortfall in rental income for Pooler House. Through no lack of effort from council officers, discussions with the Scottish Government civil servants have not moved at the pace required, leading to a projected gap in the current year. And finally, there's a projected underspend of £161,000 across legal and governance, made up of additional income and staff slippage. None of the service projections to this point in the report include costs relating to the tragic fire that took place in Scott Street back in June. To date, the Council has incurred actual costs of £621,000, with projected gross expenditure of around £3.2 million. Discussions remain ongoing with insurance companies and the Scottish Government around financial support. From paragraph 4.42, I provide an update on the Health and Social Care Partnership. When this report was published last week, the projected overspend that had been reported to the Integration Joint Board in August was £4.915 million, of which just under £3.5 million related to social care. I'm aware that the papers for next week's Integration Joint Board will be published later today. I understand that these updated papers will set out a revised projected overspend, which has increased to £5.558 million. Of this updated projection, £4.430 million relates to social care, which is an increase of £950,000 from the position set out in the report before you today. The Integration Joint Board will consider this update along with the Financial Recovery Plan at its meeting next Wednesday. This may require the IGB to issue amendments to existing directions or consider additional directions. The Council will then respond as appropriate to the outcome of the IGB meeting. This committee will receive further updates as they become available. Also of concern is the potential impact on future year budgets if the actions identified and accepted are not recurring. Demand for social care services continues to grow, and colleagues from social care are available to provide more information to elected members if required. Finally, in section 4, I provide an update on our council tax and non-domestic rates collection levels, which remain healthy, and the housing revenue account. In section 5, I'm seeking authority to adjust the 25-26 revenue budget. As is the case in the first monitoring report of each financial year, there are several adjustments to management budgets to reflect last year's final outturns. Specifically this year in relation to the DSM and PEF schemes, as well as revenue grants and budget carry-forwards. This section also includes an update on additional funding. At paragraph 5.13, I highlight that we have assumed funding of £2.864 million from the Scottish Government towards 25-26 pay awards. This figure has yet to be confirmed. The remainder of section 5 sets out some environments and proposals to draw down earmarked reserves, as well as an update on the level of unearmarked reserves. In section 6 and appendix 9, I set out the significant financial risks that may impact on the current year. As has been the case in previous years, these risks will be monitored and kept up to date. In conclusion, the Council faces significant financial pressures this year, particularly in health and social care. I'd like to thank all colleagues from all services for their continued efforts in managing budgets in what remains a very challenging environment. Convener, reporting a projected overspend to the committee is always disappointing. However, I need to remind elected members that this is based on only the first quarter of information. The committee can be assured that we will be taking steps to address this, and the impact will be reflected in future updates. Colleagues and I are happy to take questions. Thank you.
Scott, thank you very much. And could I now ask Jackie Pepper to make some comments on the position on health and social care? Jackie, because I think it would be helpful for this committee to get a broader breakdown. But as I said, with the IJB papers, it would have been unfair to, if they are available yet, to have sent them out today because several members of this committee are actual fact on housing and social well-being, and also I don't think we want to preempt the IJB. But Jackie, can you say a few words? Thank you.
Thank you, Convener, for the opportunity to provide some opening remarks and put into context the position for health and social care in Perth and Kinross and the finance report before you today. The Council provided an additional £6.7 million to support and protect social care services, and that was recurringly and based upon the increase in costs we were already experiencing in 24-25, and that was based on a medium level scenario. What it didn't do was create headroom or additionality to cover the costs associated with a high level scenario in related to increased levels of need and demand that are driving the current position. The Health and Social Care Partnership has demonstrated significant success in its delivery of savings over the previous 3 years to the tune of £12 million, and we have a further £2.5 million of savings on course to be delivered by the end of March 2026. We are experiencing unprecedented levels of high need and high cost packages of care at a time when opportunities for reducing our spend are limited. And that's not just a local issue. I think in the Chief Finance Officer's introduction, he recognised that this reflects the national experience where IJBs are experiencing depleted reserves, significant financial pressures and increasing demand and complexity of need. And as you all know, Perth and Kinross has particular challenges associated with its demographics, with the oldest population in mainland Scotland. And alongside this, we have the challenges of rurality. On Monday of this week, Audit Scotland reported its annual audit findings to the Perth and Kinross IJB's Audit and Performance Committee. There were some key messages in that report that's important to emphasise for committee members today. The robustness of governance, financial management and transparency of reporting was commented upon positively. And Perth and Kinross was also noted to be performing well against comparator health and social care partnership areas and in relation to Scotland year on year in terms of our performance across all 12 of the national health and wellbeing indicators. The Health and Social Care Partnership brought forward a report on month 3 of the financial position to and that was at the earliest opportunity to the Integration Joint Board in August. And we're working to ensure that partners are aware of the scale of the financial challenge and the detail of the drivers that lie behind this as this has emerged. We will be bringing forward a financial recovery plan at the IJB's meeting next week, and the primary objective of that financial recovery plan will be to achieve a balanced budget, and we'll bring forward a range of activity that's already underway to control spend, and that plan will need to strike a balance of reducing spend and minimising further risk of projected overspend increasing. But it will need to balance that against without or provide that without compromising our legal requirement to deliver safe and effective care for vulnerable adults. But there is no doubt that some difficult decisions will need to be taken. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you very much, Jackie. And I would just point out there's a strong contingent today from Health and Social Care with Donald Mitchell, Jane Menzies and Zoe Robertson. So thanks for all being here present, and that's helpful. And there may well be some questions to you. I know also, and I think it applies to the next 2-3 days, Councillor Colin Stewart remains as chair of the IJB. So I think he is going to ask a question in a minute. I think I will want to take this in order. Bailey or Ahern, Councillor Duff, but I know Councillor Stewart has a specific point he would like to make. I think it would be helpful to us all. But can I take first of all Bailey Ahern? Yes.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the report. My question is on paragraph 4.29, which is the move of people into Puller House, and you mentioned it in your opening remarks about the Scottish Government dragging their heels about making a decision as to whether they're going to move in. Are we going to carry on waiting for a decision to come from the Scottish Government? In the meantime, still compounding our reduction in income, or are we going to look elsewhere for somebody else to come and take that place?
I think probably first of all Scott, but also Stephen Cropper. Okay.
Thank you for the question. You know, the statement on 429 is accurate in terms of the Scottish Government. They haven't yet got there. They are the major tenant. There's 1,200 square metres on the ground floor that's provisionally allocated to them. I am informed that the decision on the OBC is almost ready to go to the Minister, and that's literally this in the last 4 or 5 days. And I'm at the moment not looking anywhere. At the moment, we're not looking anywhere else because they're a core public sector partner, and we're a long day. And I believe the OBC is positive, but it's just they haven't crossed that line yet.
Thanks, Chris. The Councillor Duff, John.
Thank you, Convener. My question's in relation to paragraph 417 on page 14 of the pack. Back in May at the Environment and Infrastructure Committee, I asked the question about the ongoing costs of Perth Harbour as a result of our failure to close it. And at that time, between lost savings and continuing costs, it amounted to something like an additional £600,000. Now, in the first 3 months of this year, and about 30 months since we made that decision, we're told there's a further overspend of £71,000. I wondered if we could have an idea of what that overspend consists of, where we are in terms of the harbour revision order, and do ships continue to use the harbour, and if so, how many? Thank you.
I think he is Serge Morone. Serge.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for your question, Councillor Duff. I can confirm that no ship has used the harbour since the 1st of April of this year. But we still continue to incur cost to meet our obligation as a statutory harbour authority. We will try obviously to keep this cost as low as possible, and they are including the harbour master cost as well as any other statutory duties that we have to undertake, like the oil spillage, the drill, maintaining the equipment, and the continuation of the assessment of the Edston navigation. That's the kind of a main element of covered by the cost. Unfortunately, the budget that has been approved by the council cannot absorb these costs. So that's why we have this overspend reported here. In relation to the harbour revision order, we've been in constant contact with Transport Scotland to progress the order, and Transport Scotland has indicated that our request is being dealt with as quickly as possible. And I take your point. I've been saying that for some time now, but I believe we are the Transport Scotland authorisation to proceed to public consultation is imminent.
John? Okay.
Thanks, convener. Just reflecting on the significant projected at this point in time overspend in the Health and Social Care Partnership. I wonder if you would consider when it comes time to moving the paper an additional recommendation, and sorry, given the impact, the potential impact that will have across the council and in terms of the whole budget settlement. I wonder if you would consider an additional recommendation to bring a report back to full council on the Health and Social Care Partnership financial position, so that all members can be informed of that at the end of the month.
Yes, and I think it's important on this, whether we can get the IJB meets next Wednesday on the 8th to consider their recovery plan, and I really genuinely don't. I think it's a question of respect. I don't want to compromise what they have to consider. I think they've got a number of quite difficult decisions, but then as far as possible, then we would accept a recommendation to when we move the report, that a detailed report comes back to council on, I think it's the 29th of October, but I'm sure there will be, further briefings and meetings on this yet to come, but that we will certainly do. Okay. Okay. On the next question is Councillor. Point of clarification. Councillor Drysdale.
Thank you, convener, and I'm grateful to Councillor Stewart for his suggestion. It's obviously this is a matter of significant concern to all elected members, and it's absolutely something that needs to be an early opportunity for full council to understand and question and challenge whatever financial recovery plan the Integration Joint Board agrees next week. And so I on behalf of the administration, I welcome Councillor Stewart's suggestion and recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Thanks, Drysdale, Eric, and I totally am in agreement with you. And I think if it goes to full council on this occasion, I think it would be helpful for all councillors to be appraised of the situation. Next question is from Councillor Barrett.
Thanks, convener. I'm not entirely sure that constituted a point of clarification. Maybe if members could try and use points of clarification appropriately in future, that would be a good thing. Convener, in the report, paragraph 4.42 references a previous report that's gone to the IJB. And within that report, there's reference to what appeared to be some very good work done in terms of reducing unmet need for care at home from 888 hours down to 283, so over 600 hours of unmet care. But I just wondered, and in terms of the comment that Jackie made about fulfilling the council's legal obligations, have we been charging away addressing unmet care needs at a time when we should have been managing the finances better? And can she tell us more, or in some more detail, what are the key components of the detailed financial recovery plan that the IJB is due to consider without compromising their ability to do so?
Jackie, or one of your colleagues.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, hi. So in terms of the unmet need, it was built into the 25-26 budget along with a medium scenario in terms of what we saw as presenting ongoing demand. However, what we have experienced has been a huge level of increase in demand coming through the system, and what we've in particular in older people services experienced is a non-standard demand coming through the system. So what we're not seeing is what you would call a standard package of care and care at home. What we are seeing are a number of relatively small number of packages of care coming through the system, which are incredibly complex. One example that I can give you of a recent case that has come through is to the tune of around £400,000 a year in terms of cost. And that's somebody who has reached an elderly stage in their life, but the reason for the size of the package of care is not about frailty, it's about a long-term mental health and alcohol dependency, for example. And we're getting cases like that coming through now, which are pushing our budget up in a very unpredictable way. So people are coming through the system, for example, after catastrophic stroke or haven't been known to services. So it's been very difficult to predict when those types of packages of care are coming through. Alongside that, we have our general care at home unmet need that has risen beyond what we predicted it would.
Thank you.
Councillor Cunningham.
I'd like to address the question from Councillor Barrett in relation to the recovery plan. We already have actions underway, Councillor Barrett, which include a robust vacancy control and vacancy management process, which is been in place for some time, and that's allowed us to manage spend, overtime, agency and supplementary staffing has come down considerably. We're also working individually with teams and services to reduce non-staff expenditure. We have budget recovery plans from each of our service areas where we are projecting overspends, and an in-depth analysis of the review and trends there. We're also working with partners to identify further opportunities for efficiencies. And we are working particularly with our nurse director around a roadmap to cease agency spend in its entirety across health services. And one of the key areas that we want to look at is actually bringing in further rigour and independent support and professional support around our assessments and decision making in relation to the level of support packages that we're providing for people, so that we want to be open and transparent about that and bring in independent support. And then there's a further series of further actions which will require considerable consultation, impact on assessment in relation to equalities and impact in relation to risk and performance, that we are going to explore further and bring back further options to the Integration Joint Board. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Next question. I should have come earlier, but in fact it's the sequence of questions I think works out reasonably well. But here it's Councillor Tom McEwen, and Tom, your question is not about the IJB, and I suspect the area might cover is housing, but we'll see.
No, you're wrong. It's not housing at all. That's the next paper. So item 5.4 in this paper, paper 5, mentions the Blairgowrie and Rattray access network. And my ward colleague on this committee, Councillor Shires, will, like me, know that they are one of the key groups within Blairgowrie and Rattray for the amazing work that they do. And I think it's great to see this action here for us to approve today. The question I have for officers is, Bran are not the only group like this in Perth and Kinross, and they are groups of volunteers who work in our communities for the benefit of our communities. And I'd just like to understand better how broad this is across Perth and Kinross and the other groups that exist who do wise work within Perth and Kinross area, and how they contribute to the aims and objectives of Perth and Kinross as a council.
Which officer? Green space. Elaine Ritchie.
Thanks, convener. I don't have that information to hand in terms of the number of groups and the outcomes that they achieve, but that's something that I could provide after today's committee and send it round. But we do work with a lot of groups between Green Space and our community learning and development teams, and the approach that we take with working in partnership with communities. So I can take an action to provide that information after today, if that's okay.
Tom? It's all right.
There are lots of these groups and they do lots of great work in our communities, and I think this just is an opportunity to highlight something positive at this committee.
Next question will be Councillor Illingworth. David?
Convener, can I ask permission to ask 3 related questions about Scott Street fire?
Yes, okay.
Great, thank you.
I think
Okay.
directly related. I think you can take that in one. Yeah.
Okay, right. First of all, how is the recovery from insurance companies and the Scottish Government progressing? Do it.
Okay, thank you. So we're in regular dialogue with insurance companies. With the insurance companies have appointed a lead loss adjuster who we're working with. The council has also moved to appointing a loss adjuster to protect our interests because it's a complicated world. Those discussions are ongoing, and we're working with them. The discussions are also ongoing with the Scottish Government. I'm aware that the papers have been passed all the way up to the Minister, and we're waiting on decisions coming back. But again, regular dialogue with Scottish Government civil servants.
Right, thank you. Second one is, what will happen if some of the properties don't have insurance?
So that's a very good question. That's part of the reason we're working with the Scottish Government, because there's 2 issues. There's a concern about people not having insurance. There's also a concern around about a term called sums insured. So basically, there is a maximum amount that an insurance company can pay out. You'll see in the report that I talked about a £3.2 million potential spend. It's likely that there'll be some people affected by that sums insured clause, and therefore it will not cover their share of costs. So again, that's why we're working with the Scottish Government to protect the interests of Perth and Kinross Council's money.
Thank you.
Okay,
and the third question is, what proportion of the £3.2 million cost do we anticipate may be irrecoverable?
So I can't answer that right now. What I can tell you is that we have provided information to both the Scottish Government and to insurers. The vast majority of the cost is around about demolition costs. Should be no surprise there. Also around about the reinstatement of the streetscape, etc. The cost that will probably not be recoverable through insurance will be around about the welfare provision that we've undertaken as part of our statutory responsibility. So I can't answer that question right now, but the message I've given the loss adjusters is I'm expecting them to pick up as much as they can to minimise the impact to the public purse.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, David. Can I just turn to Councillor Drysdale, who's a point of clarification?
Yes, we'll have another go at a point of clarification here, and this one is right. So in my second day in position, I have written to the Minister for Public Finance urging a quick and clear answer in terms of the provision of support from the Scottish Government for this work that has been done by the council since the tragic fire in Scott Street, and I'll be pressing for an early reply on that, and I will share that with elected members, that outcome, as soon as I receive that reply.
I think that does help to clarify matters, actually, and I think it's a useful comment, and it's a situation that is going to be ongoing. We've got to monitor closely and clearly. Next question is Councillor Cuthbert. Dave.
Thank you, Convener. My question relates to the overspend of 1.114 million in the primary sector. On page 31, it says that basically the staff slippage target can't be met because teachers have to be in front of a class. My question is twofold. First of all, I understood this was a a savings target put forward by officers? And secondly, I'm just wondering, was it always going to be unachievable, or has something changed in the legislation?
Right, David McCloskey.
Thanks, happy to answer that. I think, we have a collective slippage target across education and learning. And because of the way education is delivered in the secondary sector, that's always more achievable there than it would be in the primary sector. And that's kind of really got to do with the fact that we deliver the curriculum in a different way in the secondary. And it means that not every teacher is fully class committed all the time. That's a very different picture in the primary sector as well. We also have to be keenly aware that in terms of staff absence, if a primary teacher can't be in work one day, we have to have a cover teacher in that class. We can't collapse classes or change the timetable to accommodate that. So that's what makes slippage particularly challenging there. But we're managing our budgets in such a way that we're meeting the slippage target across the totality of education and learning, which I think is the right thing to do.
Suffice. Thank you. Thanks, David. Next question is Bailey McLaren. Claire.
Thank you, Convener. My question is in relation to the refuse collection projected overspend of 175,000 due to a shortfall in commercial waste income. Could you give me a bit more information around that? Is that because there's less demand from the commercial activity, or is it that there are competitors who are pricing more efficiently?
Okay, I was thinking at first Fraser Crosswell. I think Pete Leonard is on the line. Pete.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you for the question, Councillor. The shortfall is in relation to, first of all, the targets that have been set are set annually based on forecasts of anticipated income. And we are, throughout the course of a year, we do gain some customers and we do lose some customers. Over the last few years, we have experienced a shortfall in the targets that we've set. And we have one of the projects under the Zero Waste and Operations Transformation Programme is to take a fresh look at our commercial offering to customers to see about how we can improve services, keep more customers, and also to grow the business. So we're close to finishing that first assessment. So we anticipate that we will be looking at ways of growing the business to close that gap, and we'll be feeding that into the budget process for the coming financial years.
Clear, thank you. Councillor Shires, Caroline.
Thank you. My question is at 4.21, where it talks about the extended producer responsibility for packaging scheme, and it is around the reasons for the 1.18 million reduction in income.
Yeah, Pete Leonard again.
Thank you, Convener. Thank you again for the question. We've had the opportunity to meet directly with PAC UK, who explained a bit more information around why the things have changed. The changes have come around predominantly as a intervention from the UK government's actuaries department, who examined the model which was being used to calculate payments for local authorities. On their advice, there were changes made to the local authority family groups, and those changes resulted in the average cost for the group that we are now in. The average total cost was reduced. So therefore, because a lot of the payments are based on averages, consequently, we've seen our figure come down again. We did explain that we felt there were elements of the calculation which were incorrect, and we were very keen to work with them to correct those. And the indication was that we would be working together with them over coming years, but it's likely to be year 3 before we get a specific model based on our actual outturns. Up for the next 2 years, it's probably going to be based on the average models that they've been using.
That's satisfactory. Carl?
It's not an area that I'm that I'm any way an expert on, but it does sound something that we were relying on, kind of a source of income for the future. So maybe a bit more, maybe a elected member briefing or something, so we can get a bit more understanding about that, and if there's any grounds for appealing to the UK government.
Scott, I'm going to put on to you.
Yeah, just to add a little bit, we were relying on it as part of the budget. We'd made the assumptions that was going to come in. We can cope with it for the first couple of years. It will curtail our ambition in terms of what we can spend over the next couple of years. But we can certainly pull together an elected member briefing note. I mean, it's quite a complicated subject. Pete spent a lot of time with PAC UK, who's the national body that are looking after this, but we'll pull together a couple of pages on it if that would be useful.
Thanks for that, Scott, and for the question, Caroline. And yes, I'd found a briefing on this quite helpful. There's complexities here, but it was disappointing what happened, and let's see how we can move forward on this. The next question is from Deputy Provost Parrott, who's not here in the chamber today, is online. Andrew.
Thank you very much indeed. And my question relates to the IJB. We're saying the overspend to date is £4.915 million. That's the sum in absolute terms. But can somebody enlighten me as to, if you like, what percentage is that of the provision we made in that over that period? So I get a sense of the scale of that overspend. And I think that my second question has been answered in part in the answer to Councillor Peter Barrett. But am I right in thinking that a large amount of this overspend relates not so much to a general rising tide in all areas of provision, but far more to the happening of unforeseen but expensive events in a cohort of more elderly members of the population? Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Indeed, I'm going to go on to Donna Mitchell. Donna.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. I'll answer the first part of your question. In regards to the overspend that was projected at month 3, the element that relates to social care is the £3.5 million, and that is equivalent to 3% of the social care budget. Hopefully that gives you the context you were looking for that figure.
Yes, many thanks. That's great. Thank you.
I'll pass to my colleague Zoe. Thank you.
And yes, we are experiencing a sort of unprecedented demand and complexity in our older age population coming through, but we also obviously have some very significant packages coming through what we would call our adult services, or under 65s, in our learning disability, mental health, physical disability packages of care as well. We are in general seeing an increase in need and demand, acuity and complexity. However, for older people, I would suggest this feels newer in terms of the level of complexity we're experiencing.
And thank you very much for that answer. And that suggests to me that, if you like, going forward, there is a growing area of risk, if you like, in our projections of spend for that older population. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. And yes, I think what comes over clearly here is just a small handful of impacted folk, elderly folk, and it can make quite a marked difference in terms of projections and, you know, the duty of care that we do have.
Yes, thank you. In the answer to Councillor Barrett's question, I referenced the invitation that we've put out to work with external agencies or external researchers to look at some of the detail that lie behind both those small numbers of very expensive packages of care, but also some of the high volume we have in terms of lower packages of care. So we're going to look at and do some work inviting independent support for that across both ends of the spectrum. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I know there's one or two have second questions, but first question is from Councillor Ian Massey. Ian.
Thank you, Convener. My question is, with all the
budget adjustments that we're making at the moment, how are we assuring that it's not affecting education, children's health, anti-poverty initiatives? Are we not compromising service delivery or widening inequalities in Perth and Kinross? How are we monitoring that or ensuring that it's not going to happen?
Scott.
So the proposal within the report that's before you today deals with it from our council reserves. So therefore no immediate impact on service delivery. Obviously, if we're spending it in health and social care, it's not available for other areas. But on the face of it, there should be no impact on the council in the current year. Going forward, we need to look at whether our resources are in the right place, whether we need to be shifting resources, but that's a separate exercise for next year's budget.
Okay. All right. I can see Bailey Ahern was not going to follow up with, was going to have a second question. Same applies with Councillor Barrett. However, Councillor Duff, you do have a second question, John.
Thanks. It's in relation to paragraph 455 on page 20, which is to do with non-domestic rates. And it was good to see that the increase in the percentage rate of collection there. But what we don't seem to get with the non-domestic rates is where we are in relation to the number of non-domestic rate properties that are paying non-domestic rates. We get that kind of graph for the council tax, if you like, but we don't see in terms of non-domestic rates. So are the number of premises paying non-domestic rates rising or falling generally? Thank you.
I think first of all, Lynn Brady.
Yes, it's very difficult to give a definitive answer on that because the position changes significantly at times, and then sometimes it stays the same for some time. But as you could see, the overall collection is looking favourable in terms of this report, and there is ongoing monitoring taking place and obviously increased recovery to make sure that we are maximising recovery and collection. What I would say, if it helps, is the number of rating subjects hasn't changed significantly over the last couple of years. It's only risen by approximately 34 subjects, taking it to a figure of 9,831. I hope that answers, although I appreciate it's not the answer in the detail that you're looking for.
That suffice.
Thank you. That's fine. Thank you so much.
Right. And I would say clearly one thing comes out in this report is actually on council tax collection rates is a very encouraging picture. I'm going to take the final question in this section, and that's from a second question from Councillor Colin Stewart. Colin.
Thanks, Convener. It's at section 527, a wee bit of a follow-up on a different tack to Councillor Shire's question about the extended producer responsibility for packaging. We're drawing down 1.8 million that was allocated to reserves in the budget. What's that being used for?
That's simply a presentation. When you set the budget back in February, we applied that to reserves rather than to the service. So we now need to bring it out of reserves to make good the budgets within the service. So it's a presentational adjustment.
Right, I'm now going to move the report. Pick that up. Councillor Rebick, but I will take this as the last question, okay?
My apologies, Convener, that was kind of a last minute one. But actually my memory has been stirred by Councillor Shire's question on the packaging thing. I think I read somewhere that, so it's two parts to the question. PAC UK, I think, are employed by the UK government to administer this fund. And secondly, I seem to remember somewhere that we weren't the only council that had a reduction in this estimate, and all the councils that had their estimates reduced were in Scotland and Wales. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll include all this detail in the briefing note, but you're right, Scotland was affected more with the adjustments that took place over the summer. PAC PAC UK offered to meet with the top 10 councils worst affected. We were one of them, which is why Pete and my colleague Caroline France have had the opportunity to sit down with them. But yes, on the back of the methodology change, Scotland came off worse than some of the other home countries.
Okay, there are no further questions, and we've taken quite a bit of time on the revenue report, but rightly so, given the important matters we have considered. I'm going to move the report. That's the first revenue monitoring report for financial year 25-26, and once again, as always, Scott has given us a very detailed commentary and analysis. Clearly, we're protecting on services, a slight underspend at this moment in time, but the position obviously is the overspend on health and social care, and in particular on social care, and we're going to get more information on that as we progress. And the one thing that we are going to give, and I move, is the fact that is a commitment to, after the IJB meeting on Wednesday of next week, on the 8th, there will be a report back to full council on the 29th, I believe, of October, setting out what the position is, and that will go to not just this committee, but to all councillors. And I think that will be helpful to illustrate a number of the factors that are involved, demographics, the ageing of the population. I think it'd be helpful, you know, comparison with other parts of Scotland and the rest of the UK. But so that commitment we want to include, and I hope everyone will agree with that. Overall, another matters position will once again be kept under review, and you'll get further updates during the financial year. And I think the next Finance Resources meeting is on the 26th of November. The net projected overspend, though, on the Integration Joint Board, I think has to be noted that it is deeply concerning, and what action can be taken on that front. I'm now going to, along with moving the paper with that additional recommendation, I'm now going to call on Councillor Drysdale to second the paper. Eric.
Thank you, Convener. Yeah, in seconding this report this afternoon, I would like to bring several proposals to the attention of the committee. When we set out our 25-26 revenue budget back in February, we committed to reviewing our funding towards tackling poverty in the first monitoring report. Making good on that commitment, I fully support the application of £440,000 to support some of our most vulnerable citizens and communities. We will apply £250,000 to augment the Scottish Welfare Fund to ensure that our most vulnerable citizens have access to a dignified cash response to crisis situations. This is less than previous years, but that is good news. Due to the proactive and preventative approach taken by the Council's Welfare Rights and Welfare Fund teams, and in collaboration with internal and external agencies and community groups, we are in the favourable position where we can reduce the top-up of funding for financial insecurity purposes. Work is ongoing in settings such as Perth Prison and in food banks across our communities, is allowing people to access to essential services at a much earlier point. And this work is yielding some much needed outcomes for some very vulnerable households. We will also apply £150,000 to the Warm Welcome Fund. When we allocated this funding last year, a key requirement of accessing the funding would be a commitment from groups to collaborate with broader services such as welfare rights and to deliver longer-term positive outcomes in addressing poverty. The output from this was shared in the briefing we received back in June. And finally, the report seeks authority to apply £40,000 to Perth and Kinross Food Bank to support their running costs in 25-26. By working in partnership with our council teams, we can jointly deliver better outcomes for those most affected. This funding is part of our ongoing commitment to tackling poverty and the cost of living crisis, and will be funded from the Anti-Poverty Earmarked Reserve. Councillors, despite the current projections, I am confident that with this council's reputation for sound financial management, we will collectively do our best to weather this storm. Therefore, I would like to record my thanks to the Chief Executive and staff across the whole of the council for their continued efforts, and I look forward to receiving further updates throughout the course of this financial year. I'm happy to second the paper with the additional recommendation.
Thank you, Eric. I'd also echo Councillor Drysdale's comments about council officers and the Chief Executive and the assistants and the way they've managed to drive things forward. I'm now going to move on to comment, and first of all is Councillor Barrett. Peter.
Thanks, Convener. I think to be blunt, weathering the storm in terms of the health and social care crisis is not going to be easy, and it's not going to deliver the best outcomes for the people that live in Perth and Kinross or the rest of Scotland who are enduring the same problems as well. And I'd be really appreciated if the new leader of the council does start to take up these matters with Scottish Government ministers and our local MP and MSPs as well, because frankly they haven't been interested in the financial crisis that has been looming or that we've been experiencing in health and social care in all the budget discussions that I've had with them over the last 3 years. And when I pointed out that we were putting 6.7 million additional funding into health and social care to John Swinney, but that we still needed more, he wasn't interested, and that was just a plain fact. So the message has to be got through somehow, and I also think the message needs to be got through in terms of best value and actually achieving public sector savings. And when you look at this report and what it says in terms of the Scottish Government's dithering over moving into Pooler House and out of Brock's Den, you know, that is an absolute disgrace. That was something that I raised with the Minister for Finance at a public sector leadership forum that the Chief Executive was at earlier this year, pointing out that there was £600,000 worth of savings to be made there. And what was the Scottish Government doing? Because it certainly wasn't demonstrating agile government and swift decision making or a one public sector approach to the public estate. So again, that's another issue I'd be really grateful if Eric would take up with the relevant ministers, because if they're twiddling their thumbs over deciding a business case when it's clear as mud what they ought to be doing, then the message needs to be got through to them somehow and through to them more effectively than it has been to date. On a more positive note, I would like to say that I really support the proposals to draw down the £250,000 to £250,000 of financial and security funding to augment the Scottish Welfare Fund budget and to shelter and protect the most vulnerable people in Perth and Kinross in these times of crisis. Particularly as we approach winter, when people who were just about managing over the summer now face increased heating and energy bills, cold weather and the cost of Christmas as well. We have in Perth and Kinross seen a reduction in child poverty due to the concerted efforts of all members in the chamber of this council and to the leadership from officers and our staff and the work done by so many community groups committed to looking after their neighbours. And it is worth noting that in Perth and Kinross we spend double our Scottish Welfare Fund allocation to meet the level of need in our community. And I never thought when I was first elected as a councillor that we'd be in a situation where councils are delivering social security on the same level as the Scottish Government. And perhaps if the Scottish Government's ambition really is to abolish the requirement for food banks, then we, as we regularly hear from them, then they should have the same ambition to abolish the need for councils to step into the social security space as well. Provost, when the last I was in the last council when the Lib Dems were in administration, I was pleased to secure funding for the Perth and Kinross Food Bank, recognising the vital support that they provide, and I'm happy to support the proposals to allocate them the funding of 40,000 towards their current running costs. There is really good work being done by our welfare rights team to provide benefits, advice and support located within the food bank premises to enhance the early intervention and prevention work that we can do along with other partners such as the Citizens Advice Bureau to support local people, and I welcome the proposals in the report today. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And I just point out I haven't been elevated as yet to a higher position, especially with the provost sitting in front of me. However, for comments, I turn now to Councillor Massey and then Councillor Rebick and then Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, convener. How do you follow that? Well, I'll follow it with some positive comment. And despite the challenges outlined, particularly the projected net overspend of £3.4 million, I believe this report demonstrates we are taking a proactive and responsible approach to financial management across Perth and Kinross. I think some of the key positives we're highlighting are the strong budget discipline across services, with many areas either on target or delivering under spends, effective use of reserves and grant funding, including targeted support for anti-poverty initiatives, investment in education with adjustments to reflect actual DSM and PEF balances, and additional funding for teachers, induction and social care uplift, council tax collection, which is slightly ahead of the 5-year average, and planning for the future risks, including inflation, health and social care pressure and income volatility. I think this report reflects a council that is not only responsive to emerging financial pressures, but also committed to protecting frontline services and supporting communities. The adjustments and mitigations that are proposed are sensible and forward-looking, and I fully support their approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Councillor Rebick. John.
I'd just like to very briefly warmly welcome the Warm Welcome Fund. I think it's really important. Thank you.
I'm not sure, Councillor Stewart, do you want to? No. Right. Councillor Duff. John.
Thank you, Convener. And I'd like to thank Mr Walker and his officers for the report. Again, it sets out the continuing financial challenges we find in Perth and Kinross Council. As always, the report highlights the complex and varying nature of the Council's finances. There are some hard messages for us in there to reflect on, not least the health and social care position, and also the information about the extended packaging, producer packaging in the report. Yet again, I think we find ourselves partway through a financial year without our pay awards having been settled. I would also like to echo Councillor Barrett's comments about the Scottish Government taking up our offer at Puller House, and I hope that the leader will use his influence to get this matter resolved at the earliest possible opportunity. I think we also need to remember that next year's balanced budget is based on an indicative 9.5% council tax increase. And I also note that our unearmarked reserves have taken a bit of a hit and have dropped down to 2.6% when I think we were up near our 4% fairly recently. All in all, it's a difficult message as we all start to turn our minds to the budget 2026-27. Thank you.
Anyone? Right. Can we agree the paper with the proviso that that additional recommendation on the IJB and the report back to full council on the 27th of October? So we're agreed, right? And we agree to approve and to note the various recommendations and proposals. Right, we now move on to the capital budget. And once again, can I ask Scott to introduce the report?
Okay, thank you, Convener, once again. I'm pleased to present this update on both the composite capital budget and the housing investment programme. The purpose of this report is to provide a summary of our capital position to date, seek approval for several adjustments, and ensure that our capital investment plans remain robust, deliverable, and aligned with the Council's strategic priorities. The report covers the latest position on capital resources and expenditure, progress on major projects, adjustments to both the composite capital budget and the housing investment programme, and an overview of financial risks and mitigation. This monitoring report now incorporates budgets for 2031 for the composite budget and 2930 for the housing investment programme, as well as final outturns for 24-25 and the latest projections for each year going forward. The total gross capital resources available over the 6 years to 2030-31 for the composite capital budget are now estimated at just over £559.5 million. This is an increase of £31.287 million since the last approved budget, reflecting resources brought forward from 24-25, increases in capital grants, receipts and third-party contributions, and adjustments to borrowing requirements. The borrowing requirement for 25-26 has reduced by over £10 million, which reflects the rephasing of expenditure, while future years see an overall increase to support key projects and priorities. Net capital expenditure to 31st of July stands at £22.6 million, representing 16% of the revised budget for the year. The projected outturn for 25-26 is £139.2 million, or 95% of the original budget. This reflects the latest projections and all proposed adjustments. Turning to individual service areas, in environment and infrastructure, significant adjustments include rephasing of the 20 mile-an-hour signage programme, acceleration of traffic signal works, and drawdowns for bridge refurbishments and climate change projects. Furthermore, following objections to the South Kinross-Shire Flood Protection Scheme, £1.422 million is being rephased to 26-27. In housing and communities, the Bus Infrastructure Fund grant has been added, supporting design and delivery of bus infrastructure measures. Across economy, development and planning, major projects such as Destiny Bridge and the New Kingsway are complete, with an underspend of £6.703 million transferred to unallocated resources. This has allowed us to apply resources to put in place the full budgets for the Bertha Park Link Road and the A9-A85 junction. In property services, there are adjustments to reflect major allocations for Braco Primary and Pitlochry High School upgrades, the rephasing of school and technology projects, and the incorporation of the PH2O, Bell Sports Centre and community campus projects. In addition, members will be aware that the Council has been involved in a contract dispute following the opening of the popular Letham Community Wellbeing Hub. Following arbitration, the results of this dispute are set out in paragraph 5.5.6. Across customer and digital services, budgets have been realigned to reflect the revised ICT programme, with rephasing to match delivery plans. And in health and social care, adjustments to reflect savings from a longer replacement cycle for telecare equipment are now included. After all of these proposed adjustments, the balance of unallocated resources stands at £11.2 million over the 6-year programme. This will provide flexibility and capacity to allow the Council to respond to emerging needs and risks. The Housing Investment Programme is now projected to spend £89 million over 5 years, with significant adjustments to reflect accelerated buybacks, new build developments, and the allocation of future year budgets to current priorities. The buyback programme in particular has seen a substantial increase, supporting the Council's ambitions for affordable housing and regeneration, with 65 purchases already completed this year. Specifically, I'm seeking to accelerate almost £11 million to maintain progress in the current year. In a new development to our capital reporting, I've added a section and appendix to the report on financial risks. This highlights key strategic, operational and financial risks. These include inflationary pressures, staff capacity, and the reliance on external receipts, grants and contributions. We continue to mitigate these risks through detailed monitoring, prudent management of unallocated funds, and the ongoing review of project delivery. In summary, this report demonstrates the Council's commitment to delivering the capital investment programme. The adjustments proposed today ensure that our capital plans remain deliverable, responsive and aligned with our objectives. And I'd like to thank colleagues involved in the preparation and delivery of these projects and programmes. Happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Right now, I can't see. There are some questions starting to come through. Bailey Ahern, Chris.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you for the report. My question is on paragraph 6.5 on page 58 with regards to the drawdowns from the new build future developments budgets. First one is about Beechgrove. There's a drawdown there of 52,000 to cover ongoing professional fees. What unexpected increases there that were required to draw down the 52,000? And with regard to the former Balhousie School, which obviously is completely unplanned because of the fire in that, the 263,000 to cover professional fees, are any of those likely to be covered by insurance for the building?
Okay, thanks. I'm going to go to Stephen Crawford. Stephen.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. Just for clarification, these are not unplanned drawdowns. What we do in the process is Balhousie and Beechgrove are in the Strategic Housing Investment Plan as agreed projects. We have a budget for global projects. This money is being drawn down for the development of the projects. So both Balhousie, unfortunately, we had a fire in the summer, but we had full design, full listed building consent, and full design fee, design costs to support that project, and that was the expenditure of nearly £250,000. Beechgrove is behind that, and these are the costs of professional fees for architects and staff time for bringing the projects to the position they are.
Billy Arms.
Just some clarification then with regards to Balhousie School. You said the 263,000 there was for the design and the planning application for what was going to be put forward. I take it that now is lost money, and then we're going to have to do exactly the same for any new project that goes on that site?
That's correct. We've restarted that project, as you're aware, with consultation with the community, and we'll have to put for whatever the proposals, we'll have to have a new planning application and new design fees to support that. And the second part of the question, we have submitted the existing school was insured, and we have submitted information, and we're seeking insurance for the sum that the building was insured for.
Councillor Barrett, Peter.
Thanks. The Drummond Arms is listed in the significant projects in the capital monitoring report on page 85, and there's reference to listed building consent being required for part 2 of the demolition and impacts if it's not granted timiously. Can I ask, has listed building consent been applied for? Is it scheduled to be granted in good time, or is a delay anticipated? And if delayed, what are the cost implications?
Okay, thanks. And I'm very much going to go to Stephen Crawford on this. Stephen.
Thank you for the question. With regard to the instructions of this committee last November were to one, purchase the building and secondly address the dangerous building notice. But instructions of the committee were to proceed to demolish the building via seeking permission through a listed building consent. The dangerous building works commenced in April 25 and are scheduled to complete this month. Listed building consent for full demolition was applied for in early July and is currently anticipated that will go to committee in December or January. There are a number of objections to that at the moment, including one from HES, which we are working with to see if we can, if we can deal with that. In terms of the second part of your question, property services are securing the building and carrying out appropriate inspections on site until the listing building consent is received, and then we will proceed to demolish it in a safe manner for both CREEF and the community. We are looking at various things over the winter, and again with high winds except planned, of regular inspections, any inspections of hoarding and the building after particularly high winds, and that's an ongoing process The exact costs of that I couldn't say, but probably if it's a bad winter, you are maybe looking at a six-figure, 50 to £100,000 for this financial year.
Okay, and could I just thank Stephen on this front for his engagement with the community and communities in Crieff. And I think you've been at probably every community council meeting for the last 5 or 6 months, and that is very much been appreciated. I'm going to move now to Bailey McLaren. Claire.
Thank you, Convener. My question's in relation to 5.43 roads, the roads infrastructure. Bertha Park Link Road costs are anticipated to be higher than currently budgeted. Question, is that just because the construction is moving at a pace and it's ahead of schedule, or is it for other reasons? Thank you.
Best here. Scott.
So I think when this went into the budget originally, we always knew there was not enough money in the budget. We were always planning to top it up at the appropriate time. The underspend that's come forward from the Crosstay Link Roads, Destiny Bridge, New Kingsway has allowed us to do that. So that's not unexpected. We've now just got the opportunity to put the budgets in place.
Councillor McEwen, Tom.
Thank you very much. I'll be pleased, Convener, if this is one that's about housing. So firstly, apologies as Housing Convener for taking so long this morning with my agenda. It was a very interesting agenda with lots of comments. My apologies to the committee for extending your lunch by an hour and making me rush my lunch, but there you go. I can live with that. 6.6 of the papers talk about our buyback scheme process. You know, this council currently has a target that we put into the HRA of 40 buybacks a year. But with the movement that we sometimes see in new build programmes, we probably can't rely on the new build affordable housing to always give us our 210 houses we need each year for the affordable housing programme. And therefore we have pushed really hard on the buyback process. This was discussed this morning at my committee when the Strategic Housing Investment Plan paper was passed. So I'm asking here, just so that the same information can be shared at both committees, regarding the current numbers of buybacks, not just for this year, but since 2011, and the monies acquired to that. And I think there is news of new monies from the Scottish Government as well to support us with new buybacks this year. So I think an update would be good, because the figures I've been told recently are different from the FNR papers.
Okay, who wants to respond on that? Elaine.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, so the numbers are a bit different that Scott quoted. So since 2011, we have purchased 575 properties off the open market, and that's cost us just about £77 million. And for this year alone, instead of the 40 target that we have within our SHIP, we've actually purchased 97. So we've purchased quite a substantial number of properties through our buyback process, which is helping us meet the significant challenge that we have with housing demand and supply throughout Perth and Kinross.
Tom, is that so far?
Thank you very much. That was the update.
Okay. Right. Thanks, Elaine. And next question is Councillor Duff. John.
Thanks, Convener. My question's on page 52, paragraph 5.2.7, where it talks about the recycling in schools project and the need to incur additional borrowing of £102,000. And I just wondered what was the total cost, if you like, of the recycling schools project, and perhaps we could hear a bit more about the aims of the project in terms of the overall cost and outcomes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I got an update from colleagues on this. I'll start with the aim of the project. So the aim of the project is to divert waste from residual waste bins into recycling bins. The capital is required to pay for new recycling bins across the school estate. If between 10 to 30% of residual waste can be diverted to recycling, this would result in an annual saving of £30,000 to £100,000, as well as being good for the environment. And my colleagues advise that this isn't a request for additional funding. This is the additional borrowing required to fund the total capital project cost of £102,000, which is the original budget requested for the project.
Okay, thanks, Scott. I wasn't absolutely clear there who to go to because I was thinking of David McCluskey and Pete Leonard, but hopefully that does answer the question. Next is Provost McDade. Sandra.
Thank you, convener. It would be a shame to let Stephen Crawford retire without a question from me about Pitlochry, so we'll get that out of the way. So I'm just looking at the phasing on page 54 and also on 55. So I see that most of the costs are going to be incurred in 27, 28 and 28, 29. So can we expect an opening date in 2029? And just on the back of that as well, a similar question around phasing of PH2O and Bell's Sports Centre. I see the bulk of the cost for PH2O is in 29-30 and 30-31. So I'm assuming an opening date perhaps there of 31 for PH2O. And finally on Bell's, where most of the costs is in 2029 and 29-30. I'm slightly surprised that that one is going to take quite so long, and I'm just wondering what the reason for the late phasing of that is.
Stephen, first of all, given its phasing, rephasing, I thought Scott may wish to come in on this as well. But Stephen, first of all.
Yeah, I think the provost correct in terms of the phasing assumptions. Where's Pitlochry? Yeah. But those are the indicative programmes. And you're right, the bulk of it's the bulk of the spend in those financial years, and you'd suggest that would finish the project within those. And you're right, and with Pitlochry, we're starting with in terms of programming, refurbishing the school, and that's the smaller spend, with the bigger spend at the end with the new games hall within that. In terms of specifically in terms of Bell's is a phase 1 and a phase 2 as agreed at council. We've got a phase 1 enabling works, and we are currently programming that to be in the region of 18 months to 2 years to deal with the condition of the building, deal with the rack, deal with the asbestos, and making it ready for redevelopment. Now that redevelopment will be informed by the phase at the same time as the enabling works with the feasibility study and development of the operating model, so that when we've finished the enabling works, which is normally tagged on to the beginning of a job with all that uncertainty, we can actually start the phase 2 with a degree of certainty, having dealt with all the uncertain asbestos, rack, and everything else and decay within the current glulam beams.
Thank you. At 5.5.4, it talks about the Community School of Auchterarder Kitchen, and the question is about what is the impact of the 2-year delay on free school meal provision. Thank you.
I think that's Stephen, on you go.
I can answer that. There's no impact on free school meals provision. Within that delay of the project, we're providing free school meals at the moment from the existing facilities, and yes, the project's been delayed, but we're now programming, and you'll see a spend towards the end of this financial year and next year, bringing forward improvements to the dining area and the other the kitchen facilities at the campus.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay, and the second question from Councillor Barrett. Peter.
Thanks, convener. On page 55, paragraph 5.5.6, there's reference to the outcome of arbitration on the Letham Community Hub dispute with the developer. The £326,000 that has been awarded against us, I would describe it as is considerably higher than I think figures that we were led to believe would be the case back in April. So can I just ask, how did we approach arbitration to maximise the council's defence of its position and minimise our liabilities? And well, that's the first part of the question. Thanks.
I think this is quite complicated, but Stephen.
Okay, thank you for the question. This contract was a 12-month contract that unfortunately was delivered 15 months late. The contractor put a significant extension of time claim in, both during the works and at the completion of the works. We took independent advice at the time of what our liability was. It was from that, the many questions over a period of time. And we had the independent advice from an independent complaints consultant who analysed the project, identified very little liability on our front. Hence, we didn't include any provision within the contingent liabilities within the final accounts. Ultimately, a year after completing on site, the contractor has took us to adjudication in accordance with the contract, and we approached that with employment of Burness, who acted on our behalf, and claims consultants, the same claims consultant who'd done independent analysis. Ultimately, the award for the adjudication was less than 20% of the claim from the Clark contract. Yes, unfortunately, the extension of time claim was 424 days, and we were awarded 76 days of extension of time, which was in excess of the original assessment. But unfortunately, that was the decision of the adjudicator.
Peter.
Okay, thanks. So can you tell me, in terms of our arbitration, does each side meet its own costs, or are we now required to hand over the 326 to the arbiter or to Clark Contracts?
Same.
In terms of each side meets its own costs, and ultimately the fee of the arbiter is then split between both parties at the end of the adjudicator at the end of the adjudication. So we bore all our own legal costs, as did Clark Contracts.
Peter.
So, but in terms of the 300, we bear our costs for Burness and whoever. But in terms of the 326,000, do we have to pay that over to the arbiter or to the contractor? All right. And do we only do that after they've settled their sides of the arbitration?
We pay it over as instructed by the adjudicator.
Okay, as I said, it's quite a complex situation and position. Right, there being no further questions, I'm going to move the report. Let's see. We may take a brief comfort break for 5 to 10 minutes, as I'm conscious some of the members of this committee in particular have been on the go since 9:30 this morning, okay, with a fairly short break for lunch, and it's also the same with committee staff. I'm not going to take excessively long. Once again, Scott's given us a very good commentary on the contents of the capital monitoring report. And I think we do continue to make good progress. I think Eric, in a minute, Councillor Drysdale is going to point out that some of the positive aspects going forward. There has been in this paper, as always, aligning resources with actual activity on the ground, and quite an element, not just from last year, but also in general of rephasing of projects, and some adjustments flowing through from last financial year. One update, and I have to really say this, I think is especially welcome, is that on the Comrie Flood Protection Scheme, where It's taken so long over the years, but we're getting there, and hopefully by this time next year, there's a reasonable chance that the scheme will just be on the very point of completion or completed. And I compliment the team involved there in terms of communications with the local community. And so far, despite the disruption, it's actually, in my view, is looking fairly good. And I think it could be quite attractive going forward in terms of the actual tying in with the conservation village. I think it will be well received by local citizens. Appendix 4 gives quite a useful summary of the good progress made in delivering the overall capital budget of the council, and also welcome, as Scott referred to, the inclusion of the new financial risks section as one of the appendices. And yet again, I do very much thank Scott and the finance team and for the work that they've put in, and I certainly move the paper, and I'd ask Councillor Drysdale to second.
Thank you, Convener. I would also like to comment on Appendix 4. Here we are presented with a useful summary of progress on the Council's major capital projects. However, since our last update, I'm delighted to report that both Blairgowrie Recreation Centre and Perth High School are fully operational. Hurrah! Yes, we have had a couple of minor issues, but when you invest over £116 million in high-tech modern facilities, that is inevitable. What is important is that they are now open and benefiting our communities. I'm also delighted to note the update on Destiny Bridge and the new Kingsway. As well as transforming the way we move around Scone and North Perth, we have delivered an underspend of over £6.7 million, which will be returned to unallocated resources. And if I may just add that having spoken to a number of local businesses in the area, most recently Murray's Hall, the benefits of the new road to these businesses is very considerable indeed, and very welcome by those operating in that side of the city. So this also allows us to put in place the full funding package for the Bertha Park Link Road, which will be complete by December 2026. Over this capital budget, we are advised of £11.223 million of unallocated resources. This principle was established by our Chief Finance Officer last financial year, and I fully support it. By having this facility, we have capacity to deal with the inevitable bump in the road, and if it is not required, we will simply borrow less, making the capital budget more affordable. Finally, I welcome the proposal to accelerate almost £11 million to support our Council House buyback programme, which has completed 65 purchases to date already in this financial year. In summary, excellent progress is being made on the delivery of almost £560 million of investment across Perth and Kinross between now and 2030-31 on general fund services. In addition, over £89 million of investment on the Housing Investment Programme and our housing stock over the next 5 years. I'm very happy to formally second the paper.
Thank you. Do we have any comments? Councillor Rybick. John?
Excuse me, thanks very much, Convener. It's just a very brief comment. Councillor Barrett mentioned the community hub in Letham, and of course I can't really let that pass. I know that this has been one of Stephen Crawford's favourite projects throughout his long and illustrious career. My tongue is a little bit on my cheek there, and I know that there have been issues around it. I do think it's important to point out, though, that the benefits that that community and indeed many other communities throughout Perth and Kinross have gained from this project are really quite incredible. The usage of the community hub in Letham has been beyond the expectation of anybody. It is an incredible place to live. I should at this point, of course, declare my interest as being on the board. I maybe should have done that earlier, but it's a fantastic project. It's been worth every penny, whatever that cost has been. I haven't seen Councillor Barrett in the gym recently, I have to say, probably because I haven't been either. But no, on a serious note, it is a fabulous project, despite the problems that we've had with the contractor. It's been a fabulous project. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Barrett. Peter.
Yeah, just to say, I do hope to renew acquaintance with the gym and the fitness equipment in the Letham gym at some stage in the near future. And I agree wholeheartedly with John, and certainly my questions earlier regarding the cost of arbitration had nothing to do with the delivery of such a fantastic facility. I do think that if you spend £80 million on a new school, then it should be working the first week that pupils are back there, and the fact that it's closed for 3 days isn't inevitable. So, I think if there are any lessons to be learned there, as well as from the contract management and the dispute process surrounding the hub, we want to make sure that we learn them. Thank you.
Deputy Provost Barrett. Andrew.
Yes, thank you very much, Convener. I just want to highlight the underspend on Destiny Bridge and the Crosstay Link Road. I think it's the biggest project that Perth and Kinross Council have ever done, and in these uncertain and difficult times, to bring that home 4% under budget, I reckon it is, I think is a fantastic achievement. Thank you.
Do we have any other comments? Okay, we don't. Can we, before we agree the paper, I totally agree with Deputy Provost Barrett. Indeed, I remember on Crosstay Link Road and Destiny Bridge, one famous finance and resources meeting when we finished at 6:20 in the evening. But we did get there, and I think that clawback is really welcome indeed, 6.7 million thereabouts. And on Letham hub, I must say I've been there a couple of times. I really do think it's a quite wonderful facility, and one hopefully one day we can replicate in other centres through Perth and Kinross. However, enough. Can we agree this paper? Okay, I'm conscious we've got two more items, important items on the agenda, and that is transformation and change and also procurement. What might do, we'll take a brief recess just now, I think that's right. Might yet take procurement first of all, because I'm thinking with Vanessa and Lindsay who are here, and I seem to recall last time I think one of you, I think Vanessa, you had to go a bit earlier. So I think if people are agreed, we'll take procurement first of all, then transformation. However important transformation is, but so too is procurement. Right, can we be back here latest by 3:50? Okay. Bye, everyone. Yeah, thanks very much. As I indicated earlier, what we're going to do here is take the quite detailed reports on procurement, and Lisa Simpson's going to speak to the report and also the accompanying appendices and reports, and also she's going to do that we have present both Lindsay Stewart and Vanessa Robertson. I remember this time last year we ran out of time in the meeting, and that had to be taken until January. So hence why I'm taking procurement first of all. Although I suspect overall there's a good chance we'll be finished by 5. But Lisa, can you speak to the report? Thank you.
Convener, councillors, I'm pleased to present to you our annual procurement report for 24-25, together with the records of tenders awarded and payments made under the following the public pound regime. This summarises our performance over the reporting period and provides assurance that the procurement governance is robust and our processes compliant, open and fair. I also hope, however, that it demonstrates to you and to the communities that we serve how our procurement function is transforming to ensure that we get greater public value from our public procurement activity. The total procurement spend for the reporting period was in the region of 387 million, and that comprises both revenue and capital expenditure. 241 contracts were awarded in the year, and of those 101 went to Perth and Kinross businesses, that being 59 individual businesses, of which 51 were small or medium-sized enterprises. Our spend locally increased by 4.4 million as compared to the previous year, with the total local spend being £88.5 million, a clear sign that our procurement plays a pivotal role in promoting and hopefully sustaining local economic growth and job creation. Aligned to that, the Council's commitment to prompt payments remains strong, with 95% of the over 60,000 invoices paid within the agreed timescales. Our contracts also delivered 68 community benefits, including apprenticeships, training and targeted social value initiatives, such as the Y Enterprise programme, which turned a £10,000 funding into £41,000 of social value for young people at risk of disengagement. We also continued to build carbon reduction and sustainability considerations into our major contracts. We did include some detail in the report illustrating how we embedded carbon reduction throughout the procurement process for the design and the delivery of Destiny Bridge, which opened in the reporting period. And it's heartening to note that our approach has been incorporated into industry guidance. More importantly, however, is that we are now focusing on how we can deliver environmental benefits from all of our contracts. And in terms of our transformation journey, our first steps were to ensure that our governance framework not only supported compliance and transparency, but also ensured that our procurement function was aligned with the achievement of our strategic objectives and the delivery of efficient and effective services. A major milestone was the approval of our 5-year sustainable procurement strategy in June 2024. Through additional temporary funding, we have designed a new operating model, which is enabling the shift from procurement as a transactional function to one that is more strategic, data-driven and value-based, which is critical to the successful implementation of the strategy. A lot of our initial work relating to governance, whilst crucial, goes unseen, but we are now starting to see tangible benefits in our new approach. In terms of the economy and local wealth building, through targeted supplier engagement and events like Tayside Meet the Buyer, we have increased opportunities for local businesses and SMEs. The enhanced voids and buybacks contract, for example, valued at £6 million, was recently awarded to a local supplier following a targeted engagement event. In terms of protecting our environment and tackling climate change, the new grey bin contract has improved recycling quality and reduced contamination. Our contract to enhance energy efficiency across our own property estate has generated savings equal to 121 tonnes reduction of CO2 in the first 10 months. And on a smaller scale, mattress reuse initiatives have helped minimise waste and support the circular economy. In terms of supporting our organisational financial stability, by leveraging collaborative procurement frameworks such as Scotland Excel, we have achieved 1.8 million in direct and market-based savings, thus avoiding the cost for PKC. And we make full use of these frameworks, using 57 out of 66 available during that reporting period. All of our contracts over £50,000 for goods and services and £250,000 for works are publicly advertised, ensuring openness and transparency. And contracts below that value are still tested for value for money through the quick quote method. We've also developed and implemented a new contract management toolkit to improve data quality and ensure that we track not just contract performance, but value adds such as community benefits. And we have developed new e-learning modules to ensure compliance and best practice and delivered over 244 hours of face-to-face procurement training. Our community benefits requirements are now embedded in as many contracts as possible, regardless of value, to maximise social impacts, and our strategic partnering arrangements are in the process of being implemented across all service areas, with the professional procurement team working and supporting strategic leads under SMTs in terms of planning and identifying opportunities for collaboration and supplier development. I would say these achievements are not accidental. They are a result of a deliberate and ongoing programme of transformation and change, underpinned now by our 5-year sustainable procurement strategy. The transformation work continues, and our various project work streams have now been consolidated into 4 main domains: social value, environmental value, economic value, and organisational value. We have invested in digital tools such as Power BI and Management Information Platform Scotland to improve spend analysis, contract management and performance reporting. Where we can, we have further streamlined processes, enhanced governance and developed a new operating model that positions procurement as a strategic partner across the organisation. Looking ahead, our focus will be on to continue to increase local supplier engagement and spend and support SMEs and third sector organisations to access council contracts. We'll be looking to embed Fair Work First policies and living wage accreditation across our supply chain. We will be looking to further advance our environmental sustainability agenda by integrating carbon reduction, energy efficiency and circular economy principles into our procurement activity where we can. We will be expanding the use of digital tools for spend analysis, contract management and performance reporting, and further strengthening the strategic partnerships both internally and with other public partners to leverage buyer power. However, we must also be mindful of the risks and challenges that we face. Rising demand for services, supply chain disruption and inflation, to name just but a few, all place pressure on our resources and impact on our ability to reduce costs and deliver savings. This puts even greater pressure on the procurement team to support the organisation to be agile, innovative and collaborative, and to ensure that as much public value is squeezed out of our procurement spend. In closing, I would like to add my personal thanks to Lindsay Stewart and Vanessa Robertson and to the respective teams for their hard work and the commitment that they demonstrate every day to making procurement a strategic value-adding function. By working together across services with our suppliers and with our communities, we want to make sure that every public pound spent delivers the maximum possible benefit and value for the people of Perth and Kinross. Thank you, and we're all happy to take questions.
Thanks very much, Lisa. Bailey Ahern, first question. Chris?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the report. I've got a question regarding Appendix 2 and the transparency notices, and it's 3 in particular. It's on page 191, is the integrated HR and payroll system at a cost of nearly £2.8 million, which is quite outstanding for a software package. But I do note that there's 10 years extension, or it's extended for 10 years, and I'm assuming that then covers a support package for the 10 years and licensing. The second one is, I think there might be an error, which is several entries further down, which is a licensing support and maintenance for the uniform planning system for 1 day, which is just slightly under £500,000. I'm assuming that it should be a date further than the 1st of April 28. And the third one is over the page, which is the processing of glass from Perth and Kinross, West Lothian and Angus Council, which is just under 3.4 million. Is that our contribution to the processing of glass, or are we getting money from West Lothian and Angus to cover their parts of it, or are we paying for all 3 local authorities?
Thanks. That's really 3 questions. No way, 3 aspects of the question on one. But can I ask either Lindsay or Vanessa? Lindsay.
Yeah. With regards to the payroll system, that is the value over the full contract period, including extension options. And the one relating to the glass is possibly not clear, but that's actually income generating. So that is the total anticipated income for all participating bodies across the full period of that contract. With regards to the uniform planning one, I will have to look into that and come back to you if that's okay. Thank you.
Sorry, so the income from the processing of glass is the 3.365 million income to Perth and Kinross, or do we have to share that amongst West Lothian and Angus?
Lindsay?
That contract was tendered by Perth and Kinross on behalf of the other local authorities. It's a collaborative contract, so the value that is published within the contract award notice is the total income for everyone that's participating in that contract. If necessary, we can provide the breakdown. We can come back to you on that. That's not a problem. Thank you.
I expected it may be on one or two, that, when you get down to specifics, to provide written confirmation later on and more detail. I think that's right. Councillor Duff, John.
Thank you, Convener. My question's on page 187, 188 of the pack, and there are a number of taxi and private hire vehicle contracts listed, totaling roughly, I think, about £250,000, sitting under housing and communities. And I just wondered exactly what these taxi and private hire contracts provide by way of service. Thank you.
Lindsay or Vanessa?
Thank you. The taxi contracts cover a variety of different areas, including education, additional support needs, health and social care, and also foster care. And the reason they are listed under housing and communities service on the report is because these contracts are managed by the transport team, and that's the strategic area that they sit within. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. This is just a general question. It's really that this council is committed to tackling poverty and inequality across Perth and Kinross. Can you tell me how the procurement decisions of the third-party funding detailed in the report have tangibly supported local businesses and community organisations, particularly those working at the front line of social impact?
Lisa, I think, probably. No?
Sorry, Councillor Massey, what? Yeah, well, there is the local contracts. I mean, in terms of the number of contracts that have been awarded, some of that it's not necessarily active procurement decisions that we will make. It's services that are required to be procured or goods that are required to be procured, and the value add that the procurement team will bring to that is to try and negotiate that, or the use of frameworks, etc. Where we're looking to actively explore social benefits is that expansion of community benefits, of building that into our contract requirements. The other thing that we're looking to do as far as possible is influence the fair working practices and living wage, and rolling that out and trying to embed that and encourage that across our whole supply chain. And obviously by building in specifications and encouraging local suppliers to contract with the council on that. And that's the point of this, to meet the buyer events, and also engaging with the local business community in terms of what can we do to make contracting with the council as easy as possible and as streamlined as possible. One of the other things that we've done to try and encourage more local spend in that area is by increasing the threshold for works contracts to the £250,000, where you can use a quick quote as opposed to that full tender process. Again, looking to try and make the contracting with the council more accessible for local suppliers. We are, of course, governed by legislation and the legal framework. So, but within that, we are looking to encourage as much local spend and to drive out as much environmental and social value as we can through community benefits and other actions that we can build in.
You answered that question far better than I asked it.
Councillor Barrett, Peter.
Thanks, convener. Lisa, it's just going back to the issue about how we encourage and achieve local spend, and to what extent is that under our control? I think you just mentioned that 23% of overall procurement was with local suppliers, but then the report says that 45% of contracts were awarded to local suppliers. So that looks like a big figure, but it's not achieving such a big result. So presumably there's a fair wodge of spend that either can't or isn't going locally. So is it appropriate that we think about setting a percentage target for local spend? I know that the report says that as an exact value or sum, it's increased over the last 4 years, but the percentage has stayed fairly flat or dropped slightly, although we were up from this year from last year. So I'm just wondering, in terms of setting a target to drive that local spend, would a percentage be appropriate?
I think.
I am going to bring in Vanessa because she may want to give a bit more detail. But one of the things that I would say is that setting an arbitrary target, I don't think would make that much difference. It's not about work that we are doing or work that the team is doing. I think that we do have to work within the legal framework. There are some perfectly good reasons why local suppliers won't engage with the type of contracts that we've got, because they are, particularly big or particularly complex. What we do think, though, and this is part of the challenge and one of the reasons why we're looking to try and improve the quality of data and getting data from different sources, is we actually believe local spend is potentially higher, because what we're not managing to capture at this particular point in time is subcontractors. And we know that what we try to do is encourage in our big contracts that there will be local subcontractors. But at the moment, there's not we're working on a way to try and capture that data so that we can reflect that, because I think actually the story is probably even better than what we're saying. I don't know, Vanessa, if you want to bring.
Vanessa.
Yeah, it's kind of what I was going to say as well, Lisa. So we are actually working with the performance team, looking at targets for various aspects of procurement, and Grow Local is one of those elements. We've been benchmarking against other councils to see how we're doing, to try and set a reasonable target for ourselves. So possibly next year we will have a target in. We are doing a lot of work with various forums, working with economic development, working with the Perth and Kinross Economic Partnership to try and encourage local suppliers to bid for more work, find out what puts them off, what can we put in place to give them some guidance and some help, but still remain within the rules in terms of transparency. Is that working? Yeah. So we are doing a lot of work there this year to try and improve that. And as Lisa said, we've also got one of our transformation work streams, which is contract management. And as a kind of bolt onto that, we've also got a contract data project. So both of those aim to work with our contract managers and also our systems to try and develop a way of capturing our subcontractor spend. Now, it might be that we look at it for our high value, our high risk contracts and try and get the value of subcontractor spend from those. So it wouldn't be 100%, but it would give us a bit of an insight. So we've put a couple of examples into the report that we could get for this year in terms of the Comrie Flood Prevention Scheme and the Crossdale Link Road, how much money was spent locally and subcontractor spend. And we've also got a few statistics just come in today actually from property for Tayside contracts. So
just showing the amount of money that's spent on staff costs with people living in the PH postcode. So we're looking at different elements to see how much we can report on, but I think it will always be caveated with it's kind of within this spectrum. It's never going to be 100%.
Okay, thank you. And next is Councillor Caroline Shears. Caroline.
Thank you. My question's back onto the community benefits. I know certainly in Blairgowrie, there's a number of local groups that benefited through the construction of the recreation centre, so it's much appreciated. Thank you very much on their behalf. It was to get an understanding about the number of community benefit requests that are registered with the council in comparison to the number delivered. So whether the word is out there about the opportunities that exist.
Vanessa.
Hi, so yes, we have got the community benefits wish list. Now, I did have a look at this earlier because I was just checking. So the community benefits wish list, we've got a tracker and it's updated every day. So you'll see in page 149 of the report where we report how many benefits are delivered. We've also got an adjusted figure there, and that's because there may be community benefits delivered that we've not found out about at the time of reporting. So we've decided to put in that adjusted figure so that it's more up to date. So actually where it says 72, I now know that from today that's 75 that were delivered. So it is a bit of a moving feast because it depends when people tell us that information. But from today, from the wish list, there's 47 outstanding. You can only take so much from that because the wish list, it is a bit of a rolling thing. You know, we don't have a wish list for 24, 25 and try and deliver all that. Some of these wishes could be quite old. Some of them could be put on yesterday. And then we'll also have some of our community benefits that delivered will be like employability that might not have come from the wish list. So it's quite a difficult question to answer in terms of how many.
It's also worth noting that as part of our tendering process, when a supplier is awarded a contract, it's not compulsory that they award or deliver community benefits that are on the wish list. If they come forward with another alternative proposal, then that would be considered. Thank you.
Okay, Vanessa, Lindsay, thanks on that. Councillor Cuthbert, David.
Thank you, Convener. Yeah, my question relates to the Every Penny Counts initiative. My understanding is that there's been quite a lot of suggestions coming from staff relating to purchasing, and I just wondered if any of those could be cited as an example of what's happening, or whether any of those are coming through to actually procurement and the way it's working.
Thank you for that question. I have circulated the initial suggestions from Every Penny Counts across all strategic leads, and we are currently collating those responses. An example recently would be the car parking one, where there's been changes made to who's getting allocated car park spaces, etc. There were a lot of suggestions around about procurement, and I'm still working with Lisa in terms of how we take that forward, identifying themes, etc.
Just to say, I'd be interested to see what are being incorporated once it happens.
Deputy Provost Parrott. Andrew.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm on page 199 on the community groups funding allocation. And I'm very interested to see that the University of Edinburgh feature there under a service level agreement to the tune of £23,028. I'm not understanding myself at the moment how that relates to a community group being funded here. It might be getting into too much detail for an answer just now, but I'd be interested to know what the University of Edinburgh are being, if you like, funded to do for our communities. Thank you.
If we could get, I don't know if you can answer that just now. I'd be interested myself being Edinburgh Uni, but right, okay, report back. That's fine. Are you happy with that, Andrew?
Yes, many thanks.
We've got a second question here from Councillor Cuthbert. Dave.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, I'm just curious about the definition of local. When we're talking about local suppliers. With Tayside contracts, we had a similar type thing where they report on the number of local suppliers. And one of the things that surprised me was that Brake Brothers have an office in Dundee, I think, and therefore that's treated as local, even though all the stuff's coming in from outside. I'm just wondering, what is the definition of local under local suppliers?
I thought Tayside contracts might raise its head here, and understandably. But specific question, when is local? Yeah.
So we report local as if their invoice address is registered within the Perth and Kinross area. Other councils will report it differently. We take it from our data hub called Spikes. Well, it used to be called Spikes, now DXE. That data comes from our ledger and it's uploaded every quarter. So we take the figure direct from there. So yeah, it's based on the registered postcode for the invoices. Now with Tayside contracts specifically, that used to all be reported under the one Dundee postcode. In the ledger now it's split into the different areas. So there's some monies that are put to Perth. So that will be reported as local, whereas it didn't used to be. So up at Inverarmond, for example, that will be now reported under our local spend.
Okay, right. And I think last of all, yes, there is a second question from Councillor Duff. John.
Thanks, Convener. Hopefully a fairly simple one. I notice on page 204 and elsewhere, there's a whole list of Village Hall admin grants. I take it this is effectively every village hall in Perth and Kinross, and they get this annually. Is that correct?
I have got some information here from the Community Learning and Development team, so forgive me for just reading it out to you because we pull the report together but we don't issue the monies. So it says the following 5 management committees of PKC properties get an operational grant via economic development, so do not claim the admin grant, and those are Breadalbin Reading Rooms, Ayliffe Town Halls, Mewthill Village Hall, Braco Village Hall and Blairgowrie Town Hall. It says the list of halls that we contact each year about the grant has been added to recently by local knowledge of our CLD staff, and we have had requests by some elected members. Budget was increased from £14,000 to £16,000 to accommodate, and then it goes on to say in 2025 to 26, so that's not the period that we're covering in this report. 72 halls were contacted and 55 halls have claimed the grant so far. So it seems to be up to the village halls to claim the grant. So we contact as many as possible, and then it's up to them to claim a grant. I can forward this on if that's helpful.
John.
I thought I got it. And thanks very much. Yeah, that would be quite useful. I was looking at the list and trying to work out from the numerous halls in Highland Ward whether there was any missing or not. But it would be useful to have that answer. Thank you.
Councillor Duff, David Stokoe would probably be your best contact because he was the one who gave us the information.
Okay, sure. I think you're on following the public pound with the figures. What has happened compared to 1 or 2 previous years is we show the size of the amounts involved, and then when you get down to some of the smaller amounts, 250, 150, in many cases these are, a lot of them are for path administration grants and village halls. But I think it does indicate and reflect just how comprehensive these documents are, and they actually are quite a useful source of reference for a number of things if you're looking at, and I really am complimentary, just the detail and the amount of work that goes in. Very thorough. Right, do we have any further questions? No? Right, I'm going to move the report. And just to say, the council does have a statutory duty to report retrospectively on its procurement activity in the previous financial year, and also to set out its planned procurement for future years. We did things a little bit different this year. The contract delivery plan that set out the anticipated procurement activity for the current financial year, that was presented to this committee in June of the year. We took a clearly conscious decision to notify the market at the earliest opportunity without having to wait for the completion of the annual report. And that's why that delivery plan was taken as a separate document before this committee. What's before you today for approval and for noting is the procurement annual report and the records of both tenders accepted under the council scheme of delegation and the payments made to external organisations under the council's reporting arrangements for following the public pound for financial period 24-25, as I referred to just a minute ago. The report looks, as I said, a bit different this year, and hopefully it assists in also setting out how we align with the aims and the objectives of our sustainable procurement strategy, which we approved last year. I also found it useful to get some insight into how the procurement transformation and change programme is progressing, and we'll come to transformation change on a more broader basis in a little minute, and getting a better understanding of how the redesigned operating model being piloted can help us deliver better value from our public procurement activities. Procurement is central to the delivery of council services. It does include revenue expenditure and capital investment in terms of the council's infrastructure and assets. Last financial year, our spend was in the region of 387 million. Increasing costs and rising demand for services makes delivering savings a very real challenge. So it's important that our strategic procurement team can use their expertise to avoid costs where they can and to get as much value as possible from our expenditure by way of local economic, social and environmental benefits for our communities across all of Perth and Kinross. Especially pleased to see, and it aligns with our corporate priorities in relation to growing our local economy and tackling poverty. We managed to increase local spend, as we were referring to a minute ago, by 4.4 million compared with previous years. 23% of our overall spend, totaling 88 million, was recorded as being with local suppliers last financial year. And of the 241 new contracts awarded in the reporting period, 45% went to Perth and Kinross businesses. The actual contracts, you know, the question was mentioned by value. I think there's also the question, as Lisa has mentioned here, about how you factor in subcontractors as well. And that's quite an important aspect. And overall, I think it's good news. But it's not just about economic value. Even just since last November, I'm told that our new business management system used across our property portfolio, an area Stephen Croft has been very much involved with, it has reduced energy consumption by 605 megawatts, equivalent to 121 tonnes of carbon dioxide. Also increasing our income through our collaborative glass recycling contract we talked about just a few minutes ago, bringing both financial and environmental benefits. And then in terms of community benefits referred to by Caroline Shires from our contracts, it's important that these are better aligned to our strategic aims and objectives. And the Y Enterprise and 10,000 investment there was referred to. I think this report demonstrates, to conclude, not only that our public procurement is compliant, it's fair, it's transparent, but also through the programme transformation, our new operating model can deliver the aims and objectives of our sustainable procurement strategy and help us get the real value from every public pound that we spend, and we have a duty so to do. Finally, I do want to thank the procurement team, and Lindsay and Vanessa do a great job, and the rest of their colleagues, and I really do want to thank them, and I think all of us would. I'm more than happy to move the report. Can I have a seconder?
Convener, I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Drysdale. Right, do we have any comments? Okay, I think there's general agreement here, consensus entirely. I think you've answered all the questions. I think there's one that you're going to get back on, but thanks. And if we can agree, not just note the report, but approve any recommendations. But thank you, folk. And there we are. Right, so that we now move on to the final item on today's agenda, which is going to be taken earlier, and that's on transformation and change. She's not able to be here with us today, but can I ask Charlene Guild, who's online, to present the report, but also present with us today is Norman Ballantyne, part of the team on this front. Charlene.
Thank you, Convener. So I'm pleased to present the Transformation and Change Programme Update Report today, which provides an overview of progress on our individual transformation projects, as well as the strategic work of the Programme Management Office, and it covers the period from the 1st of April to the 30th of September this year. In addition, the report also summarises the findings of the recent Best Value Audit thematic review on transformation and change, which was approved by our Audit and Risk Committee on the 17th of September. It recognises our clear vision, robust governance and strong partnership working in this area. There were only 4 recommendations made to strengthen our positive work, and these are already in hand with work underway to support this. Members will find links to the full reports contained within today's update papers. As we continue to progress through phase 2 of our Transformation and Change programme, we've updated the strategy for the next 3 years, and this reflects our renewed commitments and makes clear our strategic direction in this area. The revised strategy makes links from our Transformation and Change programme to our key corporate priorities, as well as setting out the recent wider national landscape. Members will note that the foreword requires updating to reflect the change in council leadership, and this action will be completed once the papers have been discussed and approved today. The Transformation and Change programme remains a cornerstone of our efforts to deliver better outcomes for our communities, strengthen financial sustainability and ensure Perth and Kinross Council is fit for the future. Good progress continues to be made, and I look forward to members' continued support as we progress this work over the next 6 months. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlene. Do we have any questions? Councillor Stewart-Cowan.
Thanks, Convener. I note that in 5.4, one of the best value audit recommendations is to make sure that the plans are ambitious enough to address funding gaps and clearly set out the projected savings. I was just and then I was looking at the appendix to the progress updates. I was wondering, have we got that information on either projected savings or actualized savings, or actual savings that have already been realised from previous elements of the transformation project?
Thanks for your question.
Charlene.
Yes, thanks for your question, Councillor Stewart. We do have a financial tracker, and we're working with Scott Walker and his team to make sure that we're accurately recording all of the savings made. We've got a mixture within the transformation programme of some projects that have very clear savings targets against them, or there's savings to be made through the transformation project, and some we don't have targets against. That is information that we could give in our next update, which is much more in depth as it was back in May, if that would be of interest to councillors. But we are working with finance to track all of the savings that have been made to date, and they have been set out in previous reports to not only Finance and Resources Committee, but full council as well. So yes, we do that.
Okay. Councillor Duff, John.
Thank you. Within the report, it talks about delivering services more efficiently, and is just kind of wondering exactly what that means. Presumably, it means cheaper, better, to more people, and/or with fewer resources, or a combination of all of these kind of things. I just wonder, in terms of the work that we're doing under transformation and change, will we be able to be specific in terms of measuring how more efficient we are delivering a service in these type of categories, if it's cheaper or faster or to more people or whatever? We're confident that we can capture the data we need to be specific about how well we've done in relation to a transformation.
Charlene, or indeed Norman.
So I suppose I could start, and then Norman could have come in if that's okay with you, convener. But it's certainly in this area, I think the word efficiency is one that is being used nationally at the moment. So it started with the Audit Commission's paper on transformation and change throughout all 32 local authorities. And yes, efficiency really does refer to everything. So they are looking at finances, they are looking at workforce, and they are looking at positive improvements for our communities. In terms of measuring those efficiencies or benefits of our transformation programme, in our current transformation programme, so that phase 2, within the 17 projects that we have, what we have very clearly is expected outcomes of that project and critical success factors. And then we also project monitor that on a monthly basis, and we're picking up benefits realised as we go. So we will be reporting on the sorts of milestones that are being reached and the benefits that are being achieved through those transformation projects. In terms of measurements, there is both qualitative and quantitative, and these are set by project managers and senior responsible owners as we work through the programme. I'm happy for Norman to come in here if he has anything to add in terms of that project management process.
Norman?
Thanks, Charlene. I don't really have much to add. Charlene's been fairly comprehensive. One area we are trying to look at is working with colleagues in IT to try and utilise some of the more digital analysis, data analysis type tools to better measure what we're delivering. But I think key to it is to understand why we're doing the project and what change that's going to make to the existing process, so that we've got a baseline that we can measure against. But I think Charlene covered it very comprehensively.
Billy Ahern, Chris.
Thank you very much. My question is regarding paragraph 6.1 on page 93 with regards to the intensive support provision expansion. I'm just a little bit confused by the last couple of sentences, which says with regards to the 3 that are now open, offering intensive support within local catchments. This followed extensive consultation with formal approval expected for January 26. And it then goes on to say the anticipated phase 2 will commence in October 25. So what are we approving in 2026, and who is approving it?
David McCloskey.
Hi there. Yes, so obviously we've been through a statutory consultation for our first 3 intensive support provisions. Permission to undertake that statutory consultation went through Learning and Families Committee. That process is now complete, and then we'll bring it back to Learning and Families Committee in November, where the committee will obviously review the statutory consultation outcomes and give us the final approval in terms of the permanency of those 3 intensive support provisions. Meantime, it's a rolling 3-year programme, so we have 3 more intensive support provisions which have been approved temporarily, and we'll go through a statutory process with them, and so it'll go until we've completed the transformation project.
Okay. The second question from Councillor Stuart Collin.
Thanks, convener. We've just been talking about procurement. I wondered whether we actually procure any external help for transformation. So, for example, do we use any consultancy for introducing lean management techniques, for example, into how the council operates, how the workflows and processes in all the different departments can be streamlined and moved forward?
I think that's a good question. Lisa? Or Charlene?
Yeah, I could certainly answer that. So in terms of the procurement of external help for transformation, that's done on a project by project basis. So we do sometimes go for external help. In terms of the lean processes and some of the sort of tools and methodology that you've referred to there, what we do have within the organisation is a real commitment towards the service design approach, but we also have trained lean and the Six Sigma process as well. So essentially myself and Norman are both trained yellow and green belts in that, and we do work with teams on different types of project tools. So we tend to focus more on the facilitation of a service design approach because, as you know, that is much more focused on the people that we are delivering services to. But we certainly do use other methods, and I know Norman also has Prince 2. So we've got a number of different people throughout the organisation that are really helpful to us in terms of things like Prince 2, lean, service design. But if we do need additional expertise, we will have external support for that. So we're working with a leadership development coach at the moment, and she's introduced us to the theory of constraints, which has been really, really helpful in terms of just trying to identify weaknesses in programmes and projects that we're progressing through as part of the wider transformation and change programme.
Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Right. I can't see any further questions. John Duff, you got another? Oh, right, John, on you go.
Thanks very much, convener. I was reading through the report. I think I came across 1 or 2 references to surveys that we've done or are doing, and there was one on the public transport survey for which I think we got 896 responses. But it struck me that when we're putting out a survey, or when we're putting a survey together, do we have an idea of what volume of survey returns would make it representative, if you like, of our target audience, if you like? It is 896 a very good return and therefore something that we should put a lot of store in, or would we have expected 5,000 returns or whatever, and therefore what weight should we give to the responses that we've got? But it's just a general question, I think, around about surveying and how do we work out that the response to a survey is a sort of good one and worth using, putting weight into in terms of outcomes. Thanks.
I think that's maybe a broader question, but on you go, Charlene.
Yeah, I could certainly. I mean, we have pulled together some research on this, so I could give a more general answer, but I'm aware that there might be someone more specialist in this area on the call who may also want to come in with an answer. But essentially, we've carried out around about 43 consultation surveys this year, and the public transport survey is around about the 3rd largest. So that gives us sort of indication of the sorts of responses when we're looking at almost 900 has been one of the third largest. I know from experience and having managed this area that generally anything up to around about 1,000 responses is actually quite high. And what we try to do in terms of consultation and engagement is make sure that we're not just putting all our eggs in one basket with a consultation survey. But I know, for example, if you take public transport, there's also 9 public events that are being carried out that are being well attended, and there will be other consultation and engagement that's been done. But 1,000 responses to an online consultation survey would be quite a high response, and something that we would expect for I suppose quite an important or more publicly aware thing. So the budget survey that we do every year, we normally are looking about that sort of response as well.
Anyone else? Okay, I think I'd just say on obviously near 1,000 responses. Sounds as if that's acceptable statistically in terms of your sample size, but it depends. Obviously, questions that are being asked, what area you're covering. There's also, I think there's wider issues about consultation, how you engage with the community as far as you possibly can. But that I think is probably for another time. First of all, in moving this report, I very much do want to extend my thanks to the team involved here, to Charlene and Norman in particular, and who are involved in so much in the Transformation Change Programme, and also for the continued and comprehensive updates on progress. And if I think back, actually, as before Thomas Glenn here arrived, we actually ceased our transformation programme, which I thought was, at the time, I thought was inexplicable. I think we've made really substantive progress on this front. I think that was reflected in the recent Best Value Audit report for the Audit and Risk Committee just a few weeks ago. I thought that came over well. And yes, there's 1 or 2 recommendations, but it in general was very positive. I thought that was encouraging from all I could see. We've seen further development improvement in the work undertaken over the past 6 months, and we'll find out more in another 6 months' time, thereabouts. We've underlined our commitment to transforming our services in line with our needs of our communities, and building a modern, inclusive and responsive council that works for everyone. I think the other thing is we've seen, in addition to the, I think it's 15 projects that you got in the summary updates in May of this year, we've added 2 new projects. One on automation and I think AI within what I still wrongly perhaps call human resources, but people and culture. And also there's a new project on health and well-being and attendance with the education workforce. And I think that's also going to be an important project going forward. And there's details at the very end of the appendices on this. It's important the project remains, the whole programme stays flexible. It's about bringing, trying to end silo mentalities and bringing cross working between various service areas. And we need to be agile and fast. In addition to the individual project progress, we've also reached, as I said, a number of milestones with the Project Management Office, including on the Best Value Audit. The positives, I think, within the report underscore the effectiveness of our strategies in government and demonstrate the tangible benefits they bring to the organisation. We're already addressing recommendations made with work underway on with the best value, and it's a constant, I think, learning program, and we continue to pick up from any mistakes, errors, and to drive this forward. We've revised the transformation and change strategy for 25 to 28. I think that sets a clearer path forward, and it also aligns with our corporate priorities and so on. I think the achievement of projects like the Working Smarter initiative, despite on some the comments made earlier, but overall what we're doing on that front and the whole family wellbeing project, I think they demonstrate our ability to deliver what is meaningful change and support, in particular to those who need it most. We've made positive steps, and we've just got to continue the momentum because it's vital. This is not something just here in Perth and Kinross, it's with all local authorities. I think we stack up well compared to the other 32 local authorities in Scotland, but we've got to keep driving it forward. We've got to evidence, in terms of the efficiencies, the benefits that the whole process brings about. The other thing you're going to find in all the various projects is over the next 6 months, there will be further briefing sessions on specific areas. And I certainly move this report. Yeah, thank you.
And I'm very happy to second, convener. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Drysdale. Do we have any comments? Councillor Illingworth, David.
Yeah, as convener of Audit and Risk Committee, it was a great pleasure to get a very good external audit report on the transformation process. And so all congratulations to Mrs. Guild and our team. So thank you for that.
David, thanks very much for that comment. And yes, and the key thing is it was an external audit, and hence there's objectivity, and that we're basically broadly doing the right thing, but it's keeping that up. Anything further? Any more comments? Can we agree then the report? And that's, I think, concludes business for today. And for one or two of you, it's been a very lengthy day. I'm aware of that from 9:30 on. But thank you for your forbearance, and we've got there. And before 5 o'clock.